And as the promise is, we start on time. My name is Atul Khosla. I'm the founder and pro-vice chancellor of Shulini University in Kasali Hills, Himachal Pradesh. As a quick introduction, I'm a BTech from IIT Kanpur, an MBA, and then spent 20 years in the industry in different parts of the world, working with consulting firms such as McKinsey and Company. And 2013, I came full time into teaching. So I now teach full time, and I'm very proud of it. Like you, I'm a teacher, and I call myself a teacher rather than a university professor or manager, and the words I hate. So teacher is the right word. We have with us Mr. Vivek Atray. Vivek is a very dear friend, visiting faculty at Shulini, also an ex-IS officer, but more importantly, an amazing person, a TEDx speaker, and I would say a fascinating person to get to know. So Vivek is going to take us through the whole aspect of public speaking. And if you allow me, Vivek, I'll also jut in every now and then to support you and answer the questions of all our faculty members and the teachers who are here. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. So before we start, we'll request Vijaya ma'am to just give a small introduction, say hello to our teachers, and we'll then go live.
Yeah, a very good afternoon, sir. First of all, I welcome Mr. Vivek Atray and a warm welcome to Mr. Atul sir also. And there are my teachers from Sacred Heart School Moga and Sacred Heart International School Marthandam, Tamil Nadu. So both of our school teachers are joining you, sir. And I welcome all my teachers on board, and I hope you make the best of the session. And rest, I hand it over to Mr. Vivek. Thank you, sir.
Vivek, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Atul Khosla. It's always a pleasure to be on webinars with you or speaking with you. And we think alike in so many ways. It's great to have these sessions. And yes, please butt in with your suggestions on public speaking skills, because you yourself have so much experience of and a very fascinating story of how you grew from someone who could not speak very confidently to someone who speaks so confidently now. All of us go through that phase. Vijaya ma'am, thank you for agreeing to have this session. And it's a great topic that you have chosen on public speaking skills. Speaking with poise and confidence is very important for all of us. I believe we have 113 or so people already listening to us on Zoom. So it's more on YouTube. So it is fascinating to have you sitting in Moga. Atul is in Shulini, Solan. I am in Panchkula, and you also mentioned another school, which is probably in Tamil Nadu, or that's what I heard. So it's great to have two schools and university, Shulini University, organizing this together. It's a celebration in a way of humankind and what we can do, what we can achieve together. And it is something that is amazing how humankind can adapt to times which are not very conducive. Excuse me. So times which are not very conducive, they can be difficult at times, but human beings adapt, and that is what life is about. Difficulties come and go, and we progress, we move forward. So this topic of public speaking skills, I will show you a couple of slides at the end. But before that, I'll just like to say that unfortunately, apart from the fear of death, the second biggest fear of a human being overall of mankind is public speaking on stage. And that is a study carried out by many organizations and universities. People are just terrified of speaking in public. However, teachers are used to speaking in public, because even if you take little children as the public, they are addressing an audience every day. Every day they are teaching students, talking to them, 40 of them, 50 of them, 30 of them, whatever the number is. And you are making your presence felt as a public speaker. However, there are certain things which I have learned along the way, and Atul has learned along the way. We'd like to share with you some tips, some nuggets, some golden maybe ideas that will make you a better public speaker. I have come across amazing speakers in all the schools I've traveled to across this North India and other places, principals, teachers, they speak very well already. One of the things I'd like to just mention is that whenever we speak in public, we cannot afford to copy someone else. We have to be ourselves. That is the first thing. So when you're delivering a speech, especially, you have to be yourself. You cannot try to put on an act. You cannot try to change your demeanor, your way of speaking, your style, your content. Also, content, of course, you can prepare, but your delivery style really has to be as per your own style. Of course, you can speak a little louder, you can speak with a little more emphasis, you can speak with intonation, you can go up and down with your tone, you can emphasize certain sentences, but generally you will be speaking as you normally speak. So, what is the meaning of that? Many of you have heard of the serial, the show, the TV show Friends. Now, Friends, the most popular show of all time, had these five friends getting together every day at Central Perk, which is their cafe or their outlet where they go in the evening and they exchange information of what they did. And it's always hilarious, funny. But you see how they speak over there. They are not bothered about an audience, they are speaking to their friends. Often, when people start out in their careers, they think that they have to become something else when they speak, and they speak differently in the company of their friends and differently when they go into a group. If you look at someone who speaks regularly, someone, let's say on television, and television announcer, he has a certain formal way about him. Especially a Doordarshan announcer will have that. Most of the private channels have a lot of shouting going on and lots of other things happening. So they are not really the right example. But someone who speaks regularly on TV will put on a formal kind of intonation and demeanor. However, he will be speaking in a normal way. If you look at the difference between putting on an act and speaking in a normal way, I, in this lecture, will try to speak in a normal way that I would have spoken to only two of you sitting across my table here. Had two of you come to my office or room for advice on public speaking, I would have spoken in the same way. So it is different, yes, but it is the same in many ways. The second thing I'd like to mention is we have to be prepared with our content. It is no point going there and looking through your notes when you are in the middle of a class, middle of a session, middle of a speech, middle of a lecture. There is no way that you can keep searching through your notes. Of course, you can have points. You can have points which are typed out. They can be guiding points. You will typically not read out your whole speech from a sheet of paper unless it is a very formal speech, something in the United Nations, something in Parliament, an annual report perhaps which the principal will give, maybe something which is structured to the extent that every single sentence is written down. I remember when I was with the Chandigarh administration, I was director of public relations also and IT, and I had to prepare the governor's speech many a time. So when I prepared the governor's speech, finally it had to be printed by the printing press. And the governor was to go to Government of India for a conference. He was also the administrator of Chandigarh, the Punjab governor, still is. And that speech would be printed. And we had to make sure that everything was in place. And he had to read out that very speech once he has approved it. That is a very formal circumstance. Otherwise, we have to be prepared with our content to speak extempo. And our points are there, our notes are with us, or they are in our mind. We speak accordingly. Mark Twain said, even an unprepared speech has to be prepared for, which means that you have to be well prepared with certain basics of your views. Let us say somebody asks you tomorrow to deliver a speech on the education system in India. I'm sure you can do it without any problem by just referring to your ideas which are within you. So you will go within and find out what you really think about things like that, and you will go and speak. So these are the things that remain important. Firstly, to be yourself. Secondly, your content. Third is your delivery, your manner of speaking, your method of speaking. your delivery has to have certain features. The first is confidence. And that confidence is not only in the delivery, it is in your persona, in the way you are. Your content is already, you are being yourself, but you are nervous. If you are nervous, then obviously it will impact your speech. And it is okay to be a little nervous, especially when you're speaking before a large audience. You can be nervous, you can be little butterflies in the stomach. That is a good sign to some extent. When you go there and you start speaking, within a minute it has to vanish because you are into the act of speaking now. Before that you were nervous because you were waiting. Now you are speaking. There is no point in focusing on your nervousness. Gradually it will go. Confidence will come from having practiced also. If you have practiced your speech, if it is an important speech, please practice it at least once or twice in front of your friends or colleagues. That will help you to go there with poise. And confidence also comes from knowing that what you are saying, you know more about it than the people who are present. Unless they are university professors and you are appearing for some kind of viva or something, you typically know more about your topic than the audience knows. Your content has been prepared specifically for that topic, whereas those people have come as an audience. So typically you will know more. There may be some people who know more than you, and that is possible, but still you have to be confident that you know more than them. So largely you should be not overconfident, but balanced. This is very, very important. And the next point before we take a break, because we're going to see a video from Shulini in a short while, the next point I'd like to say is that your delivery has to be in a manner that it reflects your confidence. It cannot be that you're feeling confident, but your voice is low. So you cannot be speaking in such a low voice, such a soft voice, that your confidence is not being converted to your speech delivery. And those people who are listening to you, they have to feel the impact of your voice. Because the speech is, of course, about your appearance. There is so much to be said about body language. We'll come to that. But what your voice is conveying is really important. And in a large audience, unless there are TV screens over there, only the first 4 or 5 rows can actually see you properly. The rest of them are just aware that somebody standing speaking in a hall, and there your voice and the impact of your voice is what really matters. So it is very, very important to focus on these points that I've given you. Before we come to some final points and nuances, I'll just recap these points. Firstly, be yourself. Very important to be yourself. Secondly, prepare your content and be prepared very well with that content. Thirdly, be confident. Have that confidence and poise that when you're going there, you are going there well prepared. And fourthly, your delivery has to be according to your requirement, according to the confidence that you possess, according to the impact that it should have. That delivery should be able to make people really excited if that is the requirement, really inspired if that is the requirement, or well informed if that is the requirement. So especially in the case of students, when you're addressing students, some amount of inspiration and goosebumps should be generated in those students. So I think we can pause here for a video that Atul Khosla will show you on a very, very talented girl from Shulini University and how she has transformed herself. Over to you.
Thank you, Vivek. Truly appreciate. I would like to introduce you to, and I'll take a video on this in a second, student of ours. She's a PhD student. Her name is Aman, comes from a relatively lesser privileged family, was a troubled child in her bachelor's and master's, didn't do very well, and some transformation happened to her in her PhD. She's worked on something absolutely fascinating, and the topic of that is water. And we'll see that in a minute why it's so exciting. The reason why it makes so much sense to show this video today in the topic of public speaking is because Aman was actually a very shy girl. She could not come in front of an audience. After her spectacular work, we actually worked on Aman And we trained her to be a good speaker. She's presented her work now across the world. She's won something called the World Water Fellow, which is a UN-sponsored fellowship. More than 100,000 researchers apply for this every year, only one student gets this award. So Aman won this globally, and she spent 2 months in Geneva as part of the award, and then went on to win the very prestigious Tata Trust Lockheed Corporation award of 25 lakh rupees. From someone who was very meek to someone who could win these awards is a spectacular achievement. And I think it came from two, three reasons. It came from her dedication, of course. It came from the confidence and the work that she had done. And finally, it came from the practice. And we all say practice makes a person perfect, from which she had done. So before I talk more about Aman, let me bring this video up to all of you. Give me half a second. And here it is. So the reason we showed this video was the story of Aman and the story of water. And here is a student who was not someone that you would think will go out to win big laurels, and did. And I think that's the power of great public speaking. If Aman had not picked it up, Vivek, there's no way she would have gone and won those awards, because unfortunately, apart from the work we do, it's also the way we speak, which is very, very important. So before Vivek gets into his so wonderful presentation, there are three questions I'm going to pose at all of you, or four questions actually. And these are very important questions for public speaking. The first is, what do I do with my eyes? Second, what do I do with my hands? I so wish I didn't have those hands. Some people put them in their pockets when they speak. Third thing is, how do I stand still? What do I do with my feet? And finally, I think this question comes up again and again to me when I speak about public speaking is, do I use a podium or not? So I'm going to answer the last question first. Should I use a podium? I will encourage you not to use a podium. A podium is like Karan's kavach. It's like protecting you. And great speakers you'll see will never use the podium. They would like to be in front of the audience, not with that kavach or not with that armor, which is called the podium. So that's my advice on the podium. And I'll answer the other three questions as you go along. But over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Atul. I think those tips are very relevant and beautiful, because they give us an idea on how we should speak with the nuances. So let's come to a couple of stories related to this topic. Firstly, we had a foreign minister by the name of Mr. S.M. Krishna. He's from Karnataka, and he was from Karnataka. And we had Mr. Krishna going to speak at the United Nations. In fact, he was a very good foreign minister, external affairs minister, and he was very, very good as chief minister of Karnataka. A lot of development took place in his time. However, once he made an error in the United Nations committee in which he was speaking on foreign affairs, and he was to speak after the foreign minister of Peru. And the Peru foreign minister unfortunately left his papers on the podium, which Atul referred to. There was a podium and it's a formal event. So there was a space over there for him to keep his papers. And Mr. S.M. Krishna came to speak, and somehow he didn't find his own papers. He found the Peru foreign minister's papers. He started reading from that speech, and he actually read for 2 minutes or so. When he came to the words, in Peru, we have a population or whatever of this. Then he realized that this is, something else. So then this was recorded, it was wherever it went off. Then he found his own papers, made an apology. So what can happen on stage is that anything can go wrong. You are virtually in live action. When a cinema movie is being shot, the actors can take and retake and retake and retake. The director will shout cut until he gets it perfectly. But when you're on live TV, live on the stage, you don't have that opportunity. The audience is there, you are there, and the moment is there. It is for you to grab the moment and to say what you have to say effectively. So confident public speakers often also make errors, but they make amends. So it's not like you won't make a mistake. You may make a mistake of some kind. You thought that you were to talk about North India and you actually were to talk about South India. That may be a glaring example. But whatever it was, the mistake that you make, the moment you notice it, you rectify it by apologizing that I'm sorry, I was not to talk about this, or I made an error of judgment when I said this. I did not mean to say it that way. You have to recover. I often tell public speakers, some of them I mentor. There is a CEO who called me up. He says, sir, a young CEO, he says, sir, I have to give a speech tomorrow. It's my first big speech. What should I remember? I said, remember that whatever goes wrong, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Supposing the glass of water falls on top of your clothes, supposing the power goes, supposing people start laughing if you forget something, you are still alive, you're still there, you're still in a position to speak. So take a calm, deep breath and go on with your speech. Recover well as possible. Don't get too nervous. Take a few deep breaths before the speech, during the speech, whenever you can. Which brings me into a few nuances of public speaking. Firstly, rehearse your anecdotes. That means if I had to talk about S.M. Krishna, I should have thought about S.M. Krishna before my session, which I did. So I should be ready with my anecdotes and my stories before the speech. Some of them may come to you impromptu at that very minute. That's fine. If they are relevant, please say them. If they are irrelevant, stop, don't say them. Secondly, related to this story and anecdote businesses, don't digress too much sideways. You are on the path to speaking on one topic. Don't move to the other direction too much with examples, with stories, with airy-fairy things which are not required. So come back to your point and be focused on that point. And even the anecdotes and stories, as I said, have to be related to what you're generally saying. If these anecdotes are related to the audience and to you personally, it is even better. Last time we were talking on this topic, I mentioned the greatest orator that I have heard, Dhananjay Hetarachi. And Dhananjay Hetarachi, is a very difficult name. He's a Sri Lankan American. We'll try and send you the link to his speech later. I mean, he connects with the audience in a manner that nobody I've seen before. In 7 minutes, he gives this brilliant speech. So if you talk about parents, if you talk about students, if you talk about government, if you talk about things which are common to all, it will be better because people will identify with that. If you talk about your time in Addis Ababa when you were 24 years old and you were an engineer and you made some corrections over there and made an impact, they are not really interested. They may be interested for a little while, but it is not connecting with them. So your anecdote and story also has to connect with the audience. So I'm giving a lot of secrets here today, and these secrets are very important. They have to be according to your audience's capacity to understand, according to their EQ, IQ, according to their background, and according to their level. You have to speak accordingly. You have to modify your speech accordingly. And then humor is an essential part of it. You have to smile, and people also have to smile. In some way, you have to make them smile with your contents from time to time. Cheerfulness has to be there, part of the proceedings, unless you're giving a very solemn speech. And you have to make cheerful remarks. Humorous anecdotes are also great. So maybe one before I close, I will tell you. So these things will help you to really, really try and balance your speech a lot. And let us learn from great orators like Barack Obama, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. If you learn from these two, Barack Obama and Atal Bihari Vajpayee, I'll give you these two examples. I mean, they could actually mesmerize the audience. Obama has the capacity to connect to each person in the audience. Even today, when he gives speeches after his presidentship is over, he is miles better than anyone else I've seen on the world stage. He is able to captivate the audience, and he is able to see each and every side of the audience. If he's talking to a screen, he will look in front, he will look to the left, he'll look to the right, whatever the audience requirement or the screen requirement is. He will, if he's talking to someone, he will look at that person carefully. He will speak with poise, confidence. Vajpayee, the greatest thing that I could learn from him was the art of pacing your speech, how you pick up momentum, how you are starting off softly and then becoming a little more excitable and then going into important things. And the art of the pause you learn from Vajpayee, how he could pause for impact and then make the other person think. So it's very important to have these pauses. And these pauses will make the audience realize that there is something important coming. Of course, with Vajpayee, the funny thing was that he used to close his eyes during the pause, and everybody's watching him and wondering whether he's gone to sleep while standing, or he's going to continue or stop, or what is going to happen next. But he would start off again with great, great facility and diction. Great orators. So I, in fact, am going to share 3 or 4 books here with you, which I have somehow lying with me right now. And these books, one of them is actually related to public speaking, and it is The Great Speeches. I happen to find it. It is, I think the video is in, I mean, the picture is in reverse mirror image, but this is The Great Speeches of various speakers. It's a great book to have on your table side if you're a speaker or even if you're not. And since we're talking about it, I'll also mention the autobiography of a yogi, a great book about Paramahansa Yogananda and his life. In Shulini, we have a Yogananda library also. He was a great orator as well, great speaker. We also have here something very interesting. Atul will identify with this. We have a book on Dr. Khosla, who is the founder, vice chancellor of Shulini University, To Serve with Love. I happened to come across this today and I thought I must show this. It's a beautiful tribute to him on his 80th birthday. And he's the founder of Shulini University. So these are books which you must read. And because I'm also an author, this is my book. It is called Finding Success Within. And here also I talk about public speaking and other life skills which are required to be successful in life. So these books are, I think teachers, they also need to read continuously. That means every year the target should be 5 books, 6 books, 10 books, 2 books, and keep on reading books which are not part of your syllabus. I know you don't have time. I know that at the end of this, we'll discuss this point, that how difficult our lives are and how much time is lost in various things. But we have to prioritize and find time to grow, to keep on growing, developing our personalities. It's very, very important. I think we will have a lot of questions because there are lots of people. There are 169 people on my Zoom screen. So I think I should stop here with the ideas that I've shared. Maybe I can recap later. Atul Khosla, I hand over to you for your inputs and the video that you show.
Thank you, Vivek. There's a saying that you never give the microphone to a professor. And I am a convert, so I'm going to take 3 minutes, if you allow me,
Sure.
to share a few thoughts with all of you. I think I posed 4 questions to you. What do you do with the eyes? What do you do with the hands? What do you do with the feet? And should you use a podium? And I started by saying, great orators do not use the podium. Vivek spoke about Barack Obama and how he connected with the audience. It's important that we connect with the audience, and our eyes make us connect with the audience. So, small tip, look at the last person in the group, not in the first person. We tend to normally look in the first row and forget the last row. So if you look at the last row and you move your head from left to right and right to left, sometimes coming to the center of the audience, people will feel that you're connected. Many times when people glance around, they might not be looking at individual people. So what I normally do is I identify 6 or 7 people in the audience whom I switch to from time to time as I'm speaking. And as a result, I make sure that I'm speaking to people across the audience. So that's what you do with the eyes. What do you do with the hands? It's so difficult. Some people cross them like this. Now, this is resistance. Never do that. Some people put them in their pockets. It can be extremely embarrassing. So what do? You can actually use your hands very effectively to pass a message. And I'll give an example over here. Let's assume you have to pass a message. I have 3 solutions for you. 1, 2, 3. You can actually use your hands by saying, I have 3 solutions for you. The first one, the second one, and the third one. So great public speakers will use their hands very effectively and not sort of use them as a sword to kill the audience, which the novice orators do. I'll take an anecdote, Vivek, of Bill Clinton, because you spoke about Obama, who had an amazing habit of using his finger when he was the governor of Arkansas. So he would point his finger all the time to his audience. Now, that's extremely threatening. Audiences don't love it. It's like shooting your audience with a pistol. So his advisors worked very hard on him, Vivek. They told him, please don't use your finger, put your hands at the back, put them wherever you want, but this is absolutely no. But they couldn't succeed. So you know what they did? They actually moved his finger inside and his thumb out. So suddenly, as a president, he was not giving speeches like this, but actually like this. And he, from something which was being attacking, he became absolutely fine in terms of the way. In fact, it sounded more powerful when he gave his speeches. By the way, Mr. Modi also points his finger if you look at him. Not a great thing to do. That's why he has got both fans and people who might not love him that much. What do you do with your feet? Third thing. Simple, please don't walk around too much unless you're Amitabh Bachchan, which at least I'm not. Try to stand at one place. How do you stand? It's so difficult. Your legs are trembling. I was given a small tip. Open up your legs to the size of your shoulders and stand on your toes. Try that after this and you'll see that you are stuck to the ground because that's the only way you can keep yourself in one place. Otherwise, you'll just move. Small tip, but can be very effective when you're giving a public speech. Before I sort of close, I'm going to also thank all of you as teachers because all of you are doing an amazing job to keep your classrooms lit, to keep the students lit. You are the Corona warriors. You are ensuring that there is learning happening every day. You are ensuring that padhai nahi rukegi, kabhi bhi. And that's an amazing thing that you're doing. So your role is changing. Your role is moving from just being a teacher to now being an actor and a teacher because you're being recorded in the camera. Remember that parents are now watching you. Who knows, the neighborhood might be watching you, and who knows, you might be recorded. So I think the onus on you to become a better speaker becomes even more. So what can you do? 4 tricks over here. Please make sure you're dressed properly like you would in class when you're taking an online lecture. Please make sure you do it from a formal place, which is consistent and has got high connectivity. Please make sure you've got a backdrop that's consistent with the seriousness of the topic. And please make sure you start looking into the camera rather than looking into your notes when you're speaking. So 4 tips for you for online lectures. So before I close, I wanted to show you one small video which you will associate with, sorry, with, not showing the finger. Uh, and it's about how we as teachers want to influence the young world. What happened? I can see someone sharing something.
Is that me?
Is that you, Vivek, by mistake?
No, I was going to later. I'll just get it off. Wait.
Keep your mind, right? Thank you.
Yep.
So I'm going to share with you the Shulini passion, our passion, why we exist, which is to take young minds and make them world beaters. We've had many examples and stories of these, and the journey continues just like the way you work every day, very long, very hard in your lives. So over to this video. Give me a second to bring it up, and then we'll have Vivek come back to us.
Throughout history, the young have always been the ones to shape the future. And they continue to do so today. You are the country's biggest asset, our best bet to conquer the future. So what are you waiting for? Your time to dream is now. Dream of the research that can change the world. Dream of a high-flying corporate career. Dream of higher studies in the world's best universities. Dream of developing cutting-edge technology of the future. Dream of your own global startup. Shulini University, we empower you and enable you to chase your dreams and change the world. Shulini University, think learning, think success.
Vivek, over to you.
That's a beautiful, inspiring video about the youth and how the youth can make so much of a difference. So I'm just going to try and share a couple of slides here, and then we'll go to questions and answers. So I would request teachers to keep their questions ready. We already have a couple of them I see, and that's great. So we'll be taking those up as well as far as we can. Yeah, just a minute. Let me see if this works. Okay. Yeah, it'll take a little while. I think I can't find the file. So let me see a little later. So till then, let me do this, that I would like to summarize what we've talked about. And Atul has really added great points about body language and eye contact and the nuances, how to stand, how to move your hands or where to keep your hands, your eyes, your smile. it's very, very important to notice these little things as well, because these are the things which give the complete aura and the personality. It is
I would
actually
like to answer Nidhi ma'am's question over here, Vivek, which she's asking, should we keep a little bit of a smile on our face while giving a speech?
Yeah, please.
Absolutely, the answer is yes, Nidhi ma'am. And I'll give an example over here. When Roosevelt was fighting against John F. Kennedy and the elections were on, the only difference why John F. Kennedy beat him was because of the amazing smile that John F. Kennedy brought onto him, which his competitor didn't. So absolutely, if you see great speakers, if you see actors, for example, they artificially smile. By the way, smiles also add to dopamine, which makes our skin glow. So it's always great to smile. And the audience loves it. Vivek, over to you.
Absolutely. That's very true. In fact, absolutely, this is the kind of aura that you create and the kind of impression that you leave over there. That's what matters. So let's take more questions in the meantime. I think one teacher has a viewpoint that we should break. Should we break in the middle of the class or the online class? She wants to know. Well, nowadays they're worried about online classes, as we know. So I think she has that feeling. So I think there's no harm in that. I think it is Ramandeep Singh who is asking this question, whether a break should be given between the lesson in the classroom. I think all human beings love little breaks, so no harm in giving a 2 minute. But if the children are not going to come back, then there might be a problem, especially when they're at home. We also, Nidhi's question has already been answered by Atul. We need some more questions from you, teachers. We have only 2 questions till now.
Before it starts, questions start pouring in, Vivek, and I'm going to give you my story in a minute, but let me ask you a question. What has been your most exciting and most embarrassing moment as a speaker?
As a speaker, wonderful. Actually, the most exciting has probably been in my book launches, as you were there in my book launch early March, when before the lockdown. That is one of the most exciting moments as a speaker, because I'm speaking about my own work, and that gives you a lot of high in a way, and you're able to share your thoughts undiluted with anyone, everyone, and a large audience, which is very warm because they have come not out of any compulsion. So a book launch speech is very exciting for me. And as a speaker, to be in trouble, it has happened in government. So when I'm giving a speech and not prepared, or not a speech, it's even a meeting where I haven't read the file properly, or the chief secretary is asking you something and you are saying something, and he interrupts you and says, but what about this? So then you lose confidence and you forget everything. So that's the worst part.
You're still not giving your most embarrassing moment.
No, I can't. This is the moment where the chief secretary stopped me and he said, what about this or something? And I was speaking with great confidence, and suddenly I didn't know the answer. So it was very embarrassing for me.
I think I would like 1 minute more of my experience, Vivek.
Sure.
I wanted to tell everyone that I'm not sure how good a speaker I am now, but I could barely speak. I couldn't speak a word of English till I went to IIT. And when I started working for this big multinational called McKinsey & Company, I was actually told by my CEO that, Atul, we have to let you go, which means we have to fire you because you don't speak well. And I couldn't, of course, because I would stammer. So I had the courage to ask him for time, and he had the graciousness to give me the time. But his parting thoughts were, Atul, you will not succeed in consulting for more than 2 years. I can guarantee that. So what did I do? I actually bought a camera, a video camera in those days. I'm talking about the mid-90s. And I would then speak to a camera every day for 1 hour from 7 to 8 in the morning. And I practiced speaking, till one day, the same guy came back and said, I think you're gifted. You have a natural gift to speak. So I think the moral of the story is everyone and anyone can do whatever they want to do, including speaking. You just have to practice. Amitabh Bachchan, as we all know, became the best orator from someone who was rejected at the in the Akashvani test that he did. So I would say that I think there's a question, there are a couple of questions that we have now, Vivek.
Yes.
Why do legs shiver? Why do legs shiver, Vivek?
Why do legs shiver?
Uma ma'am is asking this question.
Ma'am, you're right. Actually, it is basically when you are nervous that leg shiver. That is probably a doctor will be able to tell us why the legs and why not something else shivering. But the point is that whenever we are nervous, whether on stage or whether we are in an exam where we are not confident, or in an interview, or even at home when some elderly person or senior is scolding us, our legs are shivering. So it used to be. So I think it's a facet of not having practiced enough, and maybe in the beginning years you will find yourself nervous. If they shiver a little bit, it's okay. If they keep shivering in your throughout while you're there, then you have to really practice hard. And I think the next one is
How
linked.
to overcome nervousness? I think
It's very much linked. So Atul talked about it. You see, Atul practiced so much that he became perfect. And there were 7 years of practicing before a camera. These days you are in lockdown. If you can practice before the camera, in fact, all of you are holding online sessions. So nervousness in an online session may be less than nervousness when people are surrounding you, right? So let us presume that when an audience is in front of you, you are more nervous. If you are nervous at that time, then you should have practiced with a small group before you came onto the stage. Practicing with small groups gives you the confidence to go on to larger groups. And you have to tell yourself, as I said, take deep breaths, tell yourself that you know this content well. You are going there with full preparation. Then nervousness will, nervousness is fine.
So I have 2 tips over here, Vivek.
Sure.
Tip number 1 is, which I used to do, I used to hold a small pebble in my hand, a small piece of stone. It somehow gave me the confidence. Different people have different ways to take that confidence, that nervousness away. I think the second thing is experiment. Experiment with style. I can only tell everyone that I became a way better speaker after I became a teacher. Your classroom is actually a risk-free environment. You can experiment with your class. You can change your style. You don't have to be in a monologue. So in the corporate world, the world that me and Vivek come from, or the government world, it's way more difficult to experiment. So experiment online, experiment in your classroom when the physical world starts, and you'll see that you'll figure out what your style is. Some people are great conversationalists. Arvind Kejriwal, as an example, he converses with his audience. Mr. Modi is extremely good as an orator. He doesn't converse, but he is speaking to his audience in a very magnificent way. So I think it's a style that you'll have to develop, which you think you're comfortable about, and I think you'll become a great speaker. Online studies, strategies for that. Any thoughts, Vivek? You've been doing a lot of webinars.
Yeah, online study strategy. Basically, you have to make it a little more compact and precise. So you are holding the attention of people who are not there in front of you. It's more difficult. You have a small window. Perhaps they're looking at you on a very small screen. Your personality cannot really impress them at that time that much. So your strategies have to be to keep it peppy, keep it sharp, short little bits of inputs, make them interact, give them questions, ask them questions. They'll remain a little more interested if they know that sir will ask questions or ma'am will ask questions now. So make it interactive.
So I like the last question by Babbar Bisht. The question is, suppose if my plot is already spoken by somebody. You want to give the story of Einstein?
Okay, I'll do that. I'm going to just run through a couple of more. One is, confidence is the best tool for a speaker. Yes, it is the best tool, but you need to be prepared and confident. Anvi ma'am wants to ask, good evening, sir. I want to ask, when I face a camera confidently, can't face a camera confidently, build confidence. So speak to a camera on your phone without anyone there, and just record your videos on camera, see them later, and keep practicing a little more, and try not to use WhatsApp language on questions, because I'm not used to it, but you can try to type it a little more this thing, but I can understand your question. Build up your confidence by practice.
I would request you, Anvi ma'am, there are these challenges that keep on coming up nowadays. There was a challenge to say Jai Hind. Why don't you do that? Why don't you practice putting a 2-minute Jai Hind message and sending it to your friends.
Right,
On
yeah.
That's a great way, for you to, just start opening up, and you'll start getting better every day. I can assure you on that.
There are two similar questions on the audience, that the audience is with us. And in one case, he says the audience is howling or creating noise. How can we overcome? Moga, Punjab, deliberately if I am the last speaker. Okay, deliberately means especially if I am the last speaker. Okay. So basically, the audience has to be receptive to what you're saying. Otherwise, you have to have two of your colleagues standing there and scolding them to listen to you. When I go to a school and address young students, initially they're not interested. It is only because ma'am is there that they are interested. And ma'am is strict. Once I start speaking, after 5 or 10 minutes, I've told them some story, I made them laugh, then they are with me. So you have to create that impact and gradually win over the audience. And
I've seen the toughest audience to talk to is standard 12 students. I find it very, very draining. And I've seen poetry helps, Sher o Shari helps with them. They're the age where, they don't do hear anything serious, Vivek. So that's opening up way, or a story, like you rightly said. But it's so difficult. So whoever is a teacher over here, which is teaching 11th and 12th class students, hats off to you. Very, very difficult.
And Jaya Rajamji is asking, is moving during the lecture a real problem? I move during the lecture. No, I don't think so. I think walking around is great. Moving in the sense that, if your movements are not distracting anybody, it's okay. If you're walking around in the class, rather it's good to keep their attention. And moving otherwise while standing, if you're fidgeting too much, then that is probably not required too much. So balance body language. In fact, the next question is also on body language, probably from you. What is the kind of body language that matters? Atul, you want to take this? Basically, your body language has to be balanced and confident and calm. You have to give the aura of a person who is at peace with himself.
Atul? I think the question around public speaking and classroom. I believe, Vivek, is that the classroom is not a place for public speaking, and there are different styles needed. While a public speaking arena or an auditorium is a little more formal, the classroom probably has to be more conversational. So in a classroom, yes, you should walk around. It's a little more difficult to walk around in a bigger audience. Some people do very well. So you need to be very confident for that. For example, Mr. Shiv Kheda, who's also Vivek's uncle, for example, and an amazing speaker, he walks right into the audience. He actually doesn't even stand on the podium or the stage. But I think it all depends where you are in a revolution. That's the most evolved way to engage with the audience. The next best way is to stand on stage. What you can't do is to be fidgety, I would say. I think being fidgety is wrong. So that's the way I would call it. But develop your style, your own style.
Yeah.
You will get the feedback from the audience. And that's the amazing thing about audiences. You'll get to know whether you're doing a good job or not. There's a question on appearance, content versus appearance, which is more important. And I'd like to answer that, Vivek. I think both are important, G-Ma'am. And I give this example to my students. If you go to a shop to buy a Dove soap where the wrapper is torn, would you buy that piece of soap knowing that very well there's a brand new soap inside? The answer is no, even if you get a big discount. So content is the most important. But to make the first impression, appearance is important. Unless, of course, like I said, you are so magical and you're like Amitabh Bachchan. So once you reach that stage, once you become Atal Bihari Vajpayee, then appearance doesn't matter. But if you are Atul Khosla, then it matters. If I'd come with a banyan, you would have said, who's this guy? So I need to wear my shirt when I come to talk to you. And I think it is important. But for exceptional people who are geniuses, it's not.
Right, absolutely. Just a couple more questions. I think one is that if the person has already said what I was going to say, because I'm the last speaker that came earlier, so basically that's hard luck. But you have to repeat it in a manner that is more interesting. Because he's already said it, you can add to it. and you can maybe come up with an anecdote or story which he has not come up with. So that is something which will make it better. And also there's a question, Atul, on where will we get your books during the lockdown? So that's a good one.
I think that's a good one. Yeah, you should definitely answer that, Vivek.
You should get them on Kindle. Mine is available on Kindle. All these books are available on Kindle. I think Dr. Khosla's book is the one that probably Shulini will send to you. And that is...
Yes, you can send that to, so Shikha can send it to Ma'am Vijaya Ma'am. And
absolutely. And the last question, I think, because we've covered body language, we've covered, if one student is not able to attend class one day, can he check the last work? Now, this probably means that can he check the online class of the previous day? Now, that depends on your software technology and whether anyone was recording it. I don't know whether that's possible in your school or not. I think that is what Mr. Avtar is asking from Moga. Right, Atul? I think we're done with the questions.
I think there's one last before we request Vijaya Ma'am to come, which is content or delivery, which is more important?
They are equally important. I would say 51% is content and 49% is delivery, because unless you have content, your delivery will only seem very smart and glamorous, but you're not saying anything meaningful. Saying something meaningful is really important, but saying it with style, with content, with confidence is also almost equally important.
I have a different spin on this, Vivek. My belief is it's almost like an evolution. So if you're not a great speaker, then content becomes very, very important, because then you're without content, without delivery. But if you are a great orator, then many times you can skip content. Let's take the example of Mr. Modi, for example. He is so good that even if he gives generic statements, he overcomes that. Take the example again of John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was not known for his content, but he was such a powerful speaker. He would smile all the time. He would connect with his audience, that his delivery overcame the content. But I think lesson mortals like us, please be prepared with content, I would say.
Politicians get away with it.
Absolutely.
Negative comments from the audience, if they come, it's okay, be balanced. Koi tomato nahi phekega aapke upar, just relax. Even if somebody says something, smile and try to deal with it cheerfully and go on with an impressive sentence, and they will forget the negative content.
Last question from Tanvi ma'am, and then we close.
What is it? Ready to...
Asking what happens if I make a grammatical mistake, but I'm confident.
So Tanvi ma'am, it's like this, that mistakes will be made. It's okay to make mistakes. You have made the mistake. Some people noticed it. Some people didn't notice it. Go on and try to correct yourself in future. Don't keep on apologizing for a mistake you have made and bring more scrutiny to it. So try and improve next time, make errors and get over them and move forward.
Thank you, Vivek. I think more questions are coming in. We truly apologize. We are running out of time. We'll take your questions and we'll probably try to send the answers from Vivek. Ma'am, Vijaya ma'am, if you can come online, you can unmute yourself. We'll truly appreciate that. Last words from you. And before we close, I'll also volunteer and we'll invite all of you over to Shulini, and Vivek and I would volunteer when everything is okay to come over to your school and speak to your teachers and students. But over to you, ma'am, for your last words.
Thank you, sir. It was indeed a very good eye-opening session for myself too. Though I speak, but still there are many times that I hesitate too. So as you said, that learning never ends. That's it. It's from the cradle to the grave, the learning happens. So it's an ongoing process. And I'm so happy that all my teachers were privileged to hear both of you and Vivek sir in particular. It was really great. And we hope to have you both rather on campus whenever the lockdown and everything comes back to the normal situation. So a warm welcome from us once again to our campus. And not only to the one, both the campuses.
Absolutely.
From North and
yeah. I'll be interested to go to
South.
Kumari. Absolutely, man.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you, sir, once again. And a word of thank you to Shikha also, who just introduced me to Shulini. And all the best to Shulini University too, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, and all the best to all of you. May all of you be safe, and may the lockdown get over very soon. Shikha, thank you. Vivek, always so charming. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
great
Let's
day.
stay in touch. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.